Hello everyone, and welcome to my Duel Today official news channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. According to the Tuesday, October 31 spoilers for Days of Our Lives, Stephanie Johnson expressed regret to Chad DiMera for their altercation and acknowledged that their relationship wasn't meant to be. Stephanie still loved about Chad and wanted to do something special for him, even though she believed it was time to end their relationship. Stephanie mentioned a journal that Steve and Kayla Johnson had discovered during one of their excursions, which had assisted a man in the 1800s in using magic to bring his wife back to life. Stephanie now desired to return Abigail DiMera to Chad in order to do the same for him. As Kayla brought over the written spell and a potion for the rite, Chad was skeptical. Since Stephanie needed a piece of her own and had discovered Abigail's wedding ring in the closet, she also took it out. After the magic was cast, the door was knocked on. It was Steve, who discovered some abandoned diary entries and understood it was a grave error to use them as the basis for bringing Abigail back to life. Chad resisted the notion and attempted to take Steve's rifle away, despite Steve's insistence that if the spell succeeded, they had to send Abigail back to the dead. During Tuesday's episode of Duel, there was a momentary blackout, which gave the off-screen zombie Abigail the opportunity to break Steve's neck in the shadows. While Chad was off searching for his wife, Abigail pursued Kayla as well. When he came back, he discovered Stephanie with her parents, who had passed away. Stephanie said that despite her numerous attempts to shoot Abigail, Abby didn't even flinch. Stephanie fired the gun, blaming Chad's obsession with Abigail for everything, after revealing that she had saved one bullet for him. When Chad realized it was all a Halloween nightmare, he was shocked awake. Chanel Dupree bemoaned the horror film she had just seen with Johnny DiMera and Holly Jonas at the DiMera house on Tuesday's episode of Days, but Holly volunteered to watch another one with him. Johnny escorted Chanel to her car so she could finish off some preparations in the bakery before she left. Holly decided that facing some danger would help her become closer to Johnny, and that's when things really got started. After that, Holly convinced Tate Black to don a frightening mask that resembled an alien. In addition, Holly gave Tate a knife and persuaded him to act as though he was stalking her in front of Johnny. Holly was shocked when she saw someone in the house wearing the mask, and they sliced her arm. Johnny pursued the offender, but he was unable to keep up with them. After a brief interval, Tate emerged, perplexed by Holly's wound. Tate denied doing anything, even though Holly accused him of doing so, saying he had entered through the kitchen just now to do the task. A short while later, on Tuesday's episode of Days, a person using the same mask stabbed Tate in the back before turning the knife on Johnny as well. After Johnny and Tate had fallen to the ground dead, Chanel had removed her mask, much to Holly's horror. Chanel talked about dragging her professor's wife out, and she essentially wouldn't have let Holly to take Johnny away. Chanel pretended that Holly would receive the same treatment as Johnny as she believed he had genuine feelings for her. Holly stated this was her worst fear when she woke up and saw Chanel making out with Johnny next to her as Chanel went for her with the weapon. On Tuesday's episode of Days, Eric Brady and Sloane Peterson watched a zombie movie at home before learning some heartbreaking news about Mr. Dorsey, the parishioner that Eric had recently seen in the hospital. Eric made the decision to visit the hospital to pay his final respects since Mr. Dorsey was unable to make it. Because of the intense storm outside, Sloane decided to accompany him. After arriving at the hospital, Eric left to locate Mr. Dorsey's body, and nickel walker Ariane Zucker appeared to startle Sloane. After a while, Eric ran back out with a ripped sleeve and persuaded the two women to hide with him. As a result, they all locked themselves in one of the rooms. After learning that there was a zombie apocalypse, Sloane made the decision to acknowledge Eric as Nickel's baby's father in order to atone for her transgression. Eric was furious with Sloane for withholding this information from him, and Nickel was also offended by the fabrication of the paternity test results. Eric believed that one of the women needed to remove him after realizing he had been bitten and become infected. He also discovered a syringe full of something. Nicole took over because Sloane was unable of doing it, and she made fun of Eric for not wanting to live this way or endanger their child. Sloane yelled at Nicole for torturing Eric as he collapsed to the ground. In the end, Nicole gave Sloane an injection as well and said goodbye, mentioning that Nicole will always have a bond with Eric because of his child. Sloane awoke in a panic on the home sofa, checking to see if Eric was awake as well. Eventually, she realized she had simply had a nightmare. Rafe Hernandez called Paulina Price as she was at her house having a movie night with Abe Carver about a murderous madman breaking out of Bayview. Paulina turned to see that Abe was unconscious after a brief period of no power. It was discovered that Nurse Whitley King had struck Abe over the head with a rolling pin while she was present. After Abe came to, he behaved as though his lost memories had come back. But when Abe pretended that Whitley was Paulina and accused Paulina of being Whitley, Paulina was shocked. In the pictures, Paulina was abruptly replaced and dressed more like somebody from Bayview. As a ton of plush cats started to show up in the apartment, Paulina persisted in trying to persuade Abe that she was Paulina and not Whitley. Abe called to report Paulina, sometimes known as Whitley, for running away and coming to hurt them. Whitley lifted her rolling pin to hit the genuine Paulina as she persisted in her protests. When Paulina awoke from her nightmare, she was startled, but she made an effort to forget about it and continue spending Halloween night with Abe. According to Days of Our Life spoilers, Paulina will face more difficulties in the future, so pay attention to what awaits her in the real world rather than her fantasy. The nightmare came to an end at that point, but Abigail never did return. The characters have just informed us that she has returned and they spotted her, and the show has been doing something similar to that. Abigail is being used so frequently that we hardly get to see her anymore, yet she's still a character. Perhaps it's time to let go of the compromises. Either bring Abigail back or stop forcing her home so Chad can move on, though maybe not with Stephanie. The damage might already be done. The persona can be honored and alluded to sometimes without giving viewers the impression that something exciting is about to happen all the time. Alternatively, the program might ensure that the suspense grows to a certain point. Although we adored Kate Muncy, who plays Christina on General Hospital, and Marcy Miller in the part, is it possible for lightning to strike a third time as well? They would probably understand if someone else took up the role in the event that neither actress is able to return, which may or may not have been the reason we received Abigail's resurrection narrative without, Abigail. Chad and Stephanie haven't been together for very long, so it makes sense to give him time to process his loss. Are they really supposed to tie the knot so quickly? Although it could be time to move on in some capacity shortly. How do you feel? Even though it was only a dream, were you disappointed that we weren't able to see Abigail? Do you think it's time to let her go? Or do you want to see her come back? Thanks for watching if you liked this video. So please don't forget to subscribe my channel and don't miss any update.